Your relationships are not transactions. They do not have in-app purchases, and they do not come with a card that you can swipe to redeem self-advancement credits. And the longer we keep treating them like they are, the more we keep pushing this idea that you need to use relationships to get ahead, to further yourself in the system, the more we will lose faith in love as a concept, and the more we will misuse this power that we have as humans to love each other and to have fulfilling connections that connect us with our purpose. Hello, my dear Bibblebonk Squonkuli. I am now purple. As you can see, I feel like there is a new era coming on with the summer, and today I wanted to talk about something that I've been thinking a lot about. It's been heavy on my heart, and I feel like it's been heavy on the general culture's heart as we contemplate what individualism is, and we kind of come to our realizations about what self-love culture and dating culture is really doing to us at its root, and that is the transactionality of relationships. And I feel like this is being talked about a lot, and I wanted to give my takes. I want to preface this video by saying that there's still so many things I don't know, and these are just my observations and opinions based on a lot of content I've seen and experiences I've heard about. And I also want to say that I think at its core, individualism and like self-improvement culture, or like self-love, mental health matters, and dating advice, it all comes from a well-intentioned place. I think that we are really trying as humans with this power to communicate with each other on such a large scale. We're trying to help each other live better, more fulfilling lives. And I cannot forsake the fact that individualism has a role in the society that we live in. How much money you make and are able to provide for your life, for your partners, and for the lifestyle you want to live does matter. So I don't want to forfeit all of that and just be like, you just need to love it. Like, girl, these things exist. Oh, and this is also heavily based off of my personal experience as someone who consumes a lot of self-improvement content and literally makes it, and who has very big dreams as an individual, and how this kind of interacts with my romantic relationships and also like my avoidant tendencies, generational stuff, gender stuff, so much of it. But with that said, I want to dive right in. Right after I eat these nachos that my mom just gave me. So I think a good way to start addressing this topic is to talk about the back in the day isms that we see in modern dating cultures, or I see people express the sentiment a lot of like, oh my god, what is dating in this generation? Like, why are things like this? And I totally understand the upsetness with the, dystopian model of dating, and the disposableness of like what it's like to market yourself and dating apps and all that stuff, which I will dive into in this video. But, guys, this is kind of the most freedom we've ever had to date people, to date who we want. We still have a long way to go in terms of like rights for women, rights for queer people, people of color, like every oppressed, marginalized group. But we have access to each other, and we are allowed to choose love out of love and desire. And while we are still being crushed under the weight of capitalism and having to provide, and like, what is the family model? Like, how are you going to even afford to have kids? We still do have somewhat freedom to do that. We have access to each other, whether that's through social media or through dating apps. I understand that it can turn into a dilution kind of your real personality, but something I really like to think about when I think about how technology and the internet is a double-edged sword is like, if you were raised in a community before we had the internet where you had just never heard of being gay, you had never heard of like a way that you were like being allowed to be a thing, and then you figure this thing out about yourself, and you have no idea that there is anyone out there in the world who feels the same way as you do. If I had grown up in a community where it was just never expressed to me, I was protected, shielded from the fact that girls could like girls and that gay people exist, I would think I was a freak of nature. I would be scared. I would be terrified. But once the internet came into play, you can Google this, bro. You can look up, so what I girl and I like girl, thousands of other people there. Thousands of other people to talk to about it, to explore that. Like, there's research. You can learn things about yourself. It also just always makes me laugh when people are like, oh, everyone's gay now, or everyone's into this thing now, or everyone has this type of da-da-da-da-da. People would have always been like that if they had the resources to figure that out. If they had the resources and more encouragement from people from the broader everything to figure that out, or know that that was even allowed for them to express, yeah, it would always be happening. Anyway, that's just a side note. But this doesn't just apply to being queer, but plenty of other things. Maybe you like something really weird. Maybe you're kind of a freak. Maybe you kind of live in an interesting, odd way and you have certain values. There are now ways to search and find that. And also, there's not as much like arranged marriage. Like, you have a lot more choice. And I understand that this is a very first world perspective. Like, oh yeah, I'm privileged enough to have the internet. I'm privileged enough to live in a country where there's not like arranged child marriage happening. But for the people who are watching this, most of you will be in a situation where you like have running water and you can download a dating app if you want, and you have the freedom to reject somebody if you don't like them. You have the freedom to leave a relationship that's not making you happy. The opposite argument of this is the illusion of disposability. When you don't have access to the entire world at your fingertips all the time, or when you didn't, you would very much often settle for what you had. I mean, maybe community values, even if they were restrictive and oppressive, they were kind of stronger. There was less space for rebellion to happen because it was harder to find out about rebellion. And you really had to have the mental fortitude to outlaw yourself from your entire community and go and search in the real world for people who related to you on these types of things. That is the opposite end of the equation. With the accessibility to so many different types of people, we kind of treat them like playing cards, or like we're building our deck on Clash Royale. Like, what's your setup, bro? It's a little bit disposable. And this is something that obviously very much contributes to incel culture. Now that women kind of have more choice around who we date, or we are more knowledgeable that you don't really need to have a man to survive, it's causes kind of a rift of like a loss of power. And it's funny because, you know, I don't need to sit here and be like, oh, poor men, poor little babies, oh no. But if you are the beneficiary of other people's oppression for so long, the loss of that, the seeming loss of those benefits, is going to feel really weird and off-putting, especially if that is what your entire society is built on and that is what you were promised. Imagine being exposed to the reality that that is not how anyone else has experienced life. Everyone else has kind of had it a lot worse than you, and now you're having to give up some of your entitlement to privilege to I don't know, make some room. Like, that's very much and when I see people, especially women, going, what is love in this generation? You know, men used to yearn, and like, why don't like men yearn like they used to? It also used to be way more normal for you to just get beat on by your man. Like, it would just be like, oh, I just hate my wife and I'm gonna hit her. Like, that was way more normal. Like, you used to not really be able to have your own bank account or vote. So when we speak of going back to this old model of love, I really don't know what we're talking about. And I think it plays into like more brainwashing of our own oppression. And I don't want to make this video all over the place by diving into how big of a role that gender dynamics and gender roles play in this absolute nightmare of a dating culture, but I think that deserves literally an entire video essay on its own. So I think I will make another video about that. I'm going to try to keep it gender neutral as I usually do, but it does certainly play a role. Most of this sentiment comes from a deep yearning to experience the past, or experience a time when we weren't so heavily able to surveil ourselves and others, and when dating culture didn't seem so like swipe. So what's happening here is a pendulum swing. We come from a time when there was less choice, less options, less self-empowerment, less awareness about mental health and abuse, just less awareness like overall. And we also come from a very sexually repressive time. So how this manifests once the pendulum swings, or once things progress, is we're taking advantage of all the choices, baby. We're freaking as many people as we want to. We're empowered. We're gonna leave that relationship. We're gonna get that divorce even. We're gonna have our summer fling. We're gonna sleep around if we want to. We're gonna exercise the freedom that we have to swipe on the dating apps, and we're gonna ghost people. We're going to take advantage of this freedom because it's unprecedented and our choices are unprecedented. And because we for so long spent so much energy sacrificing ourselves, and we were taught to ignore our needs for the sake of preserving the family or preserving the marriage or sticking to your group. You need to put up with this abuse. You need to put up with this BS. You need to put up with being treated badly and being with someone you're ultimately incompatible with. Because we went through so much of that, we're not doing that anymore. If you're done, you're done. If you're bad for me, you're done. If I'm uncomfortable around you, you're done. Or that's, not that people still don't accept bad treatment for very long periods of time, but when it comes to the self-love, like high value media culture, that is the sentiment. We've been elsewhere for so long. We've been down here. We've been accepting less. So now we want to carve out some better standards for ourselves. And this especially goes for women, people of color, and queer people. People who have historically had way less of a choice. Like I said before, I think this self-love culture, self-awareness culture is very well-meaning. We need to have mental health awareness. We need to care for ourselves in a way that has often been overlooked. And as technology has advanced and we're not just worried about our survival on a primal level anymore, we have room in our brain for these types of things and solving these types of problems. But when you apply this in a capitalistic, like everyone for themselves society that is sort of purposefully void of any real community structure and upholding of values, not just based off of obeying the law, but out of empathy and care for your fellow human beings, and when it's applied to also a generation like mine that is so already centered on our individualism and like how we look and how we present and like what kind of aesthetics we're displaying, you get some really interesting unnuanced outcomes. Now, I say this as a social media person. I wake up every day and I go, what am I going to say on the internet? What little short take am I going to have? When you only have short form content, when you only have a specific number of seconds to convey a point, you're gonna lose a lot of nuance. You're gonna lose some actual subject context. Your entire point is not gonna be conveyed, and the algorithm will favor what riles people up the most, what gets them the most like, what did you just say? When it's just based off of quick dopamine hits, people aren't going to really be grasping the point that you're trying to get across. They're gonna take what they want from it. An unnuanced take, by the way, with the amount of time you have, you can't really get across the depth of your point and where it comes from. They're going to take what they want and they're going to run with it. So when you're trying to make money as a creator, it's like, how can I make people the most shell-shocked? Now, I believe that authenticity will always find a way to prevail, and I do think if you're consuming content in a conscious way, I think if you're watching my videos, like, you already know this somewhat, and I really do try to foster as much authenticity as I can, because obviously I've amassed a big enough following to where I'm like, okay, there's a lot of like-minded people, you guys give me hope that there are people who actually care about the nuance and depth of their points and want to come back to, or not come back to, but create a world that is more unified and empathetic. And you don't even have to listen to me. Dude, you don't have to take everything I say at face value and accept it as fact. I am something you are watching through your screen right now. I don't know your story, I don't know what you've been through, and I don't know your value system that you're dedicated to upholding. And if you disagree with me, that is not a reason to just be like, I have to take what she says as truth, or I have to hate her now because I disagree with some of her points. It's a reason to question things within yourself, and it's a reason to question what I said that you disagree with and why. But humans, we want to feel like we're right. We want to feel like we're valid. That is what soothes us. And when we are using a coping mechanism like scrolling on social media, we are trying to validate some part of ourselves. So whatever content we see that's validating that part of ourselves, even if the part of ourselves is a conniving, jealous person, we're gonna take it. We're gonna take it and we're gonna use it as a reason why we are right. And so then the algorithm will show us more of that, and then we will get pushed further in this direction, which is why we have such a big divide in dating. So where does this get us? Self-righteous and constantly questioning. If you start seeing somebody new and you've noticed a few things, you like them, and there's some things you're unsure about, and you're scrolling through your feed and a video comes up that says, if they do this hyper-specific thing, watch out for this sign. Or if they watch this TV show, that means like you're psychologically in this way a weird person. Or if he does this, you're never gonna and he's gonna cheat on you. And if she does this, she's a hoe and she's sleeping around. What are you gonna do? immediately start doubting, immediately do more research. You're going to watch that whole thing because you're intrigued. You're going to get fed more of it. And then you're going to pit this person out to be the enemy and get entirely internalized overthinking about the whole thing. Now you're left with a bunch of doubts. You're left with a bunch of biases. And the one thing you haven't done is have a conversation with the person in question. And this doesn't just go for new relationships. Depending on what you're seeing on your social media, you can end up completely convinced that it's okay to be controlling, insane, and even violent at times. People will run tests on their partner, and just generally there's this attitude of just kind of encouraging this giving in to so many unhealthy tendencies. This, or you're comparing your partner and your relationship or your dating experiences to somebody else's glorified story that they're posting. It gets to the point where you might even just see a video of couples going on a hike together, or a couple who really likes to hike, and you think about it and you go, my partner doesn't like hiking. Maybe I should break up with them. Girl, where are we? And who are we? And this is how we end up scorekeeping. You are measuring your partner or the person you're dating's worthiness of being in your life based on this scale that rises and falls based on what your algorithms are showing you. And I'm not saying that I haven't received extremely helpful advice and insight about myself from my years I've spent on the internet, but too much of anything is not a good thing. And when you misuse and overuse this tool of possible knowledge, you're not going to get anywhere good. This is all pretty much to say that it really is that damn phone, and it is not that you have to get rid of the damn phone, but be conscious of who you are listening to and what you're internalizing as fact. Every person you hear saying, oh, you need to stop dating them if they do this, or you need that, you need to actually probably maybe get in therapy. Maybe you need to actually talk to someone who knows what's going on in your life. Maybe you need to talk to a loved one. Maybe you need to do some introspective journaling. Maybe you need to meditate a bit on it. And like I said, this even goes for me. I know this is a chronically online take, and I have been chronically online for a lot of my life. A lot of my job is to be so chronically online that I know what being chronically online is like so that I can talk about it on here. And there are probably some of you watching who are older or who weren't raised with an iPad in their hand that are like, oh my God, I am so sorry, young people. What is this? What is going on? Is this how they're living their lives? Unfortunately, a lot of us, yeah. Now, on the topic of social media and things that have to do with technology, I want to quickly speak about dating apps. I've had a lot of conversations about dating apps with members of my generation and just people who use them, and I think that the general consensus is that it's really nice to have a way to connect with other individuals in your area. Because of the lack of community-based infrastructure in most of America, which is where I'm from, in a lot of places, there's no public transit, there's little community spaces to hang out. There's often a lack of youth culture if you are, college age or in your 20s, and the only places to really interact with other people your age are bars or college. And if you don't go to either of those things, then you're kind of out of luck. So just getting to see where the other young adults were around me was really helpful when I was using dating apps. And then you kind of get the pre-vetting process. This is very beneficial. You can see on a lot of dating apps, whether or not someone smokes or drinks, or if they want kids, even if they want to get married, if they're in school, what their job is, you get a little glimpse into their life and their personality. It's cool. But the sentiment I've heard that is, not so great about it is that it feels like scrolling on any other app. It feels like playing a game. My friends and I will sometimes sit down and go, let's play Hinge, as though it is just, you are literally factually, what it is you are judging people and comparing them to whatever ideal partner you have in your head based off of stats. You have no idea what the chemistry would feel like with this person in real life. You have no idea what they're like in conversation. You have no idea that much about them at all. Which is true when you meet anyone, and it's not much different if you were able to go up to someone in real life and just ask them about themselves, except you would probably know less, straight away. You get a choice in how to present yourself when you use a dating app. But when we adjust our brains and our brains get so used to just being able to know everything about someone and click yes or no, it makes us really weird and awkward and tense in our actual real life dating and flirting dynamics. I've been on dating apps before. I've gone on dates from dating apps, and I've also been someone who goes up to people in real life if I find them attractive and I would like to speak to them. It's odd because even when I go up to these people in real life that I find attractive, I ask them for their social media quite often instead of their number, because I want to judge them and I want to perceive them based off of what they put on the internet, which is interesting. Oh, that's a whole other thing. I'm not against dating apps. Actually, I think they're quite useful, and I think that plenty of fulfilling relationships can come of them, but it's also just really weird to go from just texting somebody on the phone to hanging out with them one-on-one immediately. I very much prefer to have the buffer of group hangouts or mutual friends to let the dynamic flow. When so much pressure is on both people to just solely be interacting with each other, it's more tense. It feels more high stakes. Whereas if you're hanging out with a group of friends, or you hang out with their friends and your friends, you can see what they're like around other people they enjoy being with. Maybe there's space between you guys at times. There's like an ebb and flow in the connection, which I feel is really valuable. So that's just like another little tidbit. Social media and these concepts and self-love and self-improvement culture can push us in the direction of self-realization, self-exploration, and a genuine want to deepen our connection with ourselves and our partners. And it can also lead us to realize that maybe we aren't being treated well, and maybe we don't want to be where we're at, and maybe we do want to make different decisions about our dating life. But these realizations require actual action in your life, not just consuming more and more content. You need to give yourself time to enact and reflect on the things that these pieces of content or books or anything in the world is telling you, and make sure it is right for you. Because there are so many people that through watching videos on the internet or reading books or consuming content have realized that they're in a bad situation, have realized that maybe they have a mental illness that they were unaware of, have realized things about themselves. So it's not all bad. It's not all bad. Like I said, awareness is key. But when it comes to apps that are specifically designed especially to kind of take your awareness out of the equation when you are consuming so that you consume more, it's difficult, and I would just say be careful. So where are we now? We've developed over time. We're now living in a culture that's less purity based. We've got hookup culture. We've got all this stuff. We've got social media encouraging these dynamics, saying that we should be very self-forward and, girl, just advance your own life and just, focus on yourself. And then we have kind of the disposability that dating apps brings us and that social media encourages us towards if we are at all susceptible to avoidant tendencies, I think, or self-advancement. And self-advancement and thinking individual-mindedly is encouraged by capitalism and the fend for yourself structure of modern society. Okay, so this is the part where I start kind of referencing my own personal experience, because I feel I have a lot of it when it comes to things like this, and I've been dealing with a particular aspect of it for a couple years now. I've made videos dealing with this subject before of love versus work, romance versus capitalism. Romantic love feels like something that is so comforting and necessary, and it is something I really enjoy to do, but it is the most technically unproductive thing I could think of doing. How does it further me towards my dreams of achieving and being a star if I just want to lay in bed cuddling someone all day? What does that do for me? It's already taken me years, and it is still something I struggle with every single day, to accept that rest is necessary to do anything. And even if I was desperately striving to succeed by society's means, the best, most effective way to do so would be allowing myself to rest. And what does true love help one do? Rest. But I've been confronting the fear of love taking away from my relationship with myself for years. My relationship with my art, my relationship with my spirituality. I just have a deep fear that if I am to put my attention and my effort into something so deeply soul involving, that it's going to take away from everything about me and it's going to make me love myself less. So I raise you this one question. What is it that makes you think that love isn't deepening your relationship with yourself? After so long of thinking that being in a relationship would prevent me from getting to know myself, I have finally realized the reason that I have avoided it is because I don't like the uncomfortability of dealing with the parts of myself that are ugly, that come out during an argument with someone I love, or during confronting my own insecurities about whether or not somebody loves me back. Those are the parts of myself that are not pretty. They don't fit the aesthetic of getting up and drinking a matcha every day and going on a walk, because that is just one part of healing. And healing is not a performance. It shouldn't be a performance. It's not going to look like what you see on social media. It's not going to look like, girl, leave him and be high self-worth and just like, it's going to look like crying. Okay? It's going to look like talking about difficult things. It's going to look like accepting differences that you have, accepting flaws about yourself and somebody else. And so much of the criticism that I've cast on my partners is from the deep insecurities I have within myself. Why am I going to sit here and judge somebody else for not being more productive or making more money or like doing this much, when really that's leading me to a part of myself that feels insecure that I'm not doing more? Oh, because I have a deep fear that I'm not doing enough. Oh, because I have a deep fear that my worth is based off how much I'm producing and how much I'm putting out into the world. Oh, because I've been made to think that my worth is tied to what I'm contributing monetarily. And is love not a contribution? Is love not a contribution? Just because you are dating someone does not mean you are no longer yourself. You are always going to be yourself. And yes, it's important to stay aware of whether you're codependent with somebody. It's important to remain an individual and cultivate your own passions and hobbies outside of relationships. But if you are avoiding love because you are scared of exposing some part of yourself, exposing a wound that you cover up for aesthetics, if you are so attached to the image of self-prioritization and self-improvement and self-love that you've been shown through the media you consume and the biases you have and the beliefs you've cultivated, then you probably need to get off your high horse, baby. You probably are not privy to just how much emotional work can be done through the mirror that a relationship is. It is so easy to be all healed and be so productive and be so cool, calm, and collected when you do not have someone making you feel the challenges and turbulence within yourself. And I'm not saying that a relationship should constantly be these ups and downs, or that every time you see your partner you have to confront some deep trauma about yourself. But I'm saying that when you fight with your partner and you have some deep-seated beliefs and you have some deep-seated issues, it's guiding you somewhere. It's guiding you somewhere within yourself. Whether or not the fate of your relationship is to stay together for the rest of your life or whatever, at the end of the day, this is your human experience. And this is just through the lens of individualism too. What I'm saying is still on a very individual level. I'm saying it's still beneficial for you on your self-improvement individual journey to learn these things about yourself and confront these parts of yourself in a relationship and to be held by another. But oh my God, it's a person that you're with. It is a privilege and an honor to get to love and to know somebody. That, dude, working not just on yourself, but on the bond, on the place of existence that you inhabit when you are trying to connect with someone on such a deep, intimate level, you are showing them a mirror too. And gazing into each other's reflections is beautiful. It's beautiful. And that's why we do this stuff. That's why we work through our stuff. That's why we put aside our egos. That's why we choose at the end of the day to ultimately love and trust. And that is what we should be doing with one another, because you can do all the self-improvement you want. You can do all the being alone that you want. But when you realize how truly fulfilling it is to love somebody else and it feels right, not only is that just so dope and awesome, but it makes you appreciate yourself. and being alive. Way more. And love is not a possession. It is a free-flowing state of being, and it is something that you create with somebody. And I say all this to mean that you don't have to pretend that you don't want love. You don't have to act like it's not a desire of yours to have intimate moments with someone, to be so deeply known that it makes you question what life even is. You don't have to submit to the media and culture that pits you against every romantic interest you could possibly have. You don't have to date the perfect person, and you also don't have to accept somebody who's not right for you and somebody who's not being good to you just because you're scared you'll never find someone who will be. Both things are true. And it is up to you to determine what you want from a relationship. It is up to you to do that research outside of and inside of yourself to determine whether you're happy, okay? Don't let anyone else tell you whether you're happy or not. Like I said, including myself. That's for you to figure out, baby. Now, what has been an element in relationships in the past is just very normal to be codependent. Very normal to not be able to function without each other, to commit crimes of passion. Very normal to just trade off any other aspect of your life that you had to submit to being with someone. Like a trade-off. Like, oh, I don't get to hang out with my friends anymore as much. Or like, oh, I don't get to have my own job or do my own hobbies and passions as often. And no, I don't get to have my own space because now I have to get married to this person. We're going to share a space and we have to be in one room and It's really important to make conscious choices about the next step you want to take in your relationship. And don't go up the relationship escalator, which is where you're just kind of standing there, but it's taking you up and it's like, okay, so we're dating. So I assume that, we're going to be in this type of relationship. And then I assume that, we're going to move in together. And we're going to, define what is right for you. Define what is right for you and take charge of that. That is another privilege that we have in this modern day and age. But you don't have to sacrifice everything individual about yourself to be in a relationship. And I think that's what a lot of this content is trying to tell us. And you also don't have to sacrifice your mental health. And you also don't have to sacrifice your safety. It takes a village to be a person. It takes a village to be in a relationship. And like I said, in a place that doesn't really cultivate community very much, it's important that you build and strengthen community bonds with anyone outside of your relationship if you want to have a healthy relationship. All of your focus in the world should not be just completely on them. Your quality of life should not be contingent on how your partner's navigating their own life. The point is to support each other synergistically. It's okay to be empathetic. It's okay that if your partner's going through a really, really rough time that it's getting a little hard for you and you just really want to be there and support them. But you don't have to sacrifice everything about yourself for love. It's not a trade-off. And both people in a relationship, if I can say one thing, should be able to function mentally on their own. You should not be your partner's reason for being alive. That's not romantic. That's kind of scary. And I think my main point with this video is that disposing of people the second they make a slight misstep or a human mistake is not being high value. That's not being prioritize yourself. That's just... Okay, that's an interesting approach to take, but accepting abuse and toxic behavior from somebody under the guise of being a true lover boy, lover girl, lover they, that's not cute either. And that's not unconditional love. Girl, and it's a gentle line to toe. And you do have to know yourself. You will get to know yourself more while you're in a relationship. But it's really important that you kind of know what's up with you and what you need. Which is why we do self-reflection. That's why we do self-improvement. But don't let it be a reason that you avoid something if you want it. And dude, if you don't want love, if you don't feel like being in a relationship, all power to you. Don't do it yet. But if you're trying a date and you are just going off of all these stereotypes and your mind is closed to being surprised, or you've been hurt by so many people in the past that it just doesn't seem worth it to you anymore, you probably need to do some deconstructing of your beliefs and biases. But it all comes down to having trust in ourselves. If we don't trust that we're capable of leaving a situation if it's not serving us, if we don't trust that we're capable of handling our own priorities and staying on top of our own stuff and having our shit together, it's going to be really hard for us to connect with others because we face a deep insecurity and mistrust with ourselves. So what can I say? They're both important. Improving yourself is important, not just by the standard of, like I said, aesthetics and like making money and like grind culture, but improving your relationship with yourself and your understanding of your own purpose and staying in alignment with that is going to make you a happier person and a more fun person to be with. But it's also important to not get so cynical and stuck up that you just completely avoid any uncomfortability that getting to know someone else will give you. You know what a red flag is for you, or you should know, and you know what a deal breaker is for you. And honestly, I find it really helpful to write down that type of stuff and to take note of it. Make yourself some guidelines. If you have a very output-based relationship with yourself, if you judge yourself based off of how much you're able to get done in a day, or you're really oriented around grind culture or hustling for your dreams, it's going to be hard for you to connect with others on a deep level where you're not judging them in the same way that you might be judging yourself. I've struggled with scorekeeping in my relationships plenty of times throughout my life, and scorekeeping is not really productive for the flow of love. It doesn't foster safety. So while it's really truly important to know what you want and where your line is, you can't control everyone the way that you control yourself. And the more you overthink, and the more you try to control, and the more you struggle against the present moment and the person that you're with, the longer it's going to take for things to figure themselves out. Because you're meddling in it, girl. However they're going to treat you after you tell them your expectations and what you need from them is up to them. And you don't have to go around and compensate for them because you're scared of facing disappointment and you're scared of everyone being right about you shouldn't believe in love and love isn't real. Living from fear is probably the most immediate way to doom your relationships. But the secret is really to stop judging so harshly. Stop judging yourself and every thought that passes through your mind because you are not your thoughts. Stop judging what everyone else is doing, whether it's negative or positive, all the other couples on the internet, all the other people telling you how to live your life and what to do with it. Stop judging your partner when they have like a misstep, while simultaneously knowing what your deal breakers are and communicating what you need. But the only thing you can ever truly control is yourself. And if you want to take the route of cynicism and never loving again and just staying away from people because people always upset you, then that is how your life will go. But if you want to open your heart slowly and know yourself and love yourself enough, like they've taught you to know when you need to leave, but love yourself enough to know when something is just a challenge and whether or not you want to navigate through that challenge with the person you're navigating it with, it's all up to you. It's all up to you. My lesson that I try to teach others is always to be compassionate with yourself on this human learning journey, because love is possible. Whether it's with yourself or with someone else, or it's platonic, or it's romantic, and a billion other variables. Life is brief, but it's also very long. And you have time to figure it out. I love you very much, my Bibblebonk Squonkuli. Thank you for tuning into this video. I'm trying to do more, editing, and I want to make more videos here, and I'm just really grateful for all of you like-minded folks. And comment if you agree. Comment with what you disagree with. I am always open to new perspectives. I will be in the process of shooting my first music video within the next week, and I'm really excited to show that to you guys. Thank you, everyone who tuned into my radio show that I was on recently. I was on a show with my friend. She has a radio show. That was really cool. I will probably be posting the audio of that up on my SoundCloud because we lost the footage that I was going to post on YouTube, but yada yada. I've been doing well. Thank you for all the support. I will be back very soon having more reflections as I go experience my own turbulence in my life, but I'm happy that I can feel the full spectrum of emotions because all of it, no matter what, is teaching me something, and I love to learn. Okay, love you, Bibblebonk Squonkuli. Mwah, Ozzy out.
What's 9 plus 10? What's 9 plus 10? What's 9 plus 10? What's 9